Are we ready? Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Madhava Kunjabihari Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivardhari Jasodhanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jana Vrajajanaran Jasodhanandana Vrajajanaranjana Nandana Vrajajanaran Yamuna Tira Vanachadi Jamuna Tira Vanachadi Tira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodhanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jana Vrajajanaran Jasodhanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachadi Tira Vanachadi Yamuna Tira Vanachadi Tira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jayo Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivedagacharya Astatara Sattaki Srimada's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Gaura Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Chaitanya Bhagavata, familiar? Two main biographies, well, several, but two especially prominent biographies of Lord Chaitanya's life. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Bhagavata. Chaitanya Mangala is another, and others. So Chaitanya Bhagavata was written by Vrindavan Das Thakur, celebrated Vaishnava in our Sampradaya. When he was very young, he grew up a pure devotee in the association of pure devotees that had Lord Chaitanya's association. So it was in his being, love for Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. So this chapter is chapter 9, and it's the meeting of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. So what just completed was the father of Lord Chaitanya left this world, and his mother was beside herself with anxiety, but she had still her son, Nimai, and her affection for Nimai was overwhelming because she's pure devotee and he's the personality of Godhead. So that enabled her to cross beyond the grief of the loss of her beloved husband. And then the exchanges between Nimai and Sachi after Jagannath Mishra's departure. So we did a little research, and it turns out in the commentary before Jagannath Mishra departed, there was the Upanayana. Everything's okay. Upanayana, the thread ceremony, and there was some discussion, how old was he when that took place? And Bhakti Siddhanta makes reference. Bhakti Siddhanta made commentary on all these, most of all of the verses of Chaitanya Bhagavata. And he recites a verse from Scripture, the ritual section of Scripture, and it says that a Brahmana is to be initiated in the chanting of Gayatri Mantra at 8 years of age. That was your question. And little research, this I knew from before. For a Kshatriya, it's 12 years when a boy is 12. But for a Brahmana, he was a Brahmana. He was born in a Brahmana family. 8 years. So it gives you an idea, relatively speaking, where he is. Now, Lord Nityananda appeared around 12 years before Lord Chaitanya appeared. So that's the next chapter. There's Lord Nityananda's appearance and then Lord Nityananda's departure. Like Balaram is to Krishna, his elder brother, so Nityananda is to Lord Chaitanya. There's, much bigger gap of age and other differences. They were born in different parents and different places. But the transcendental relationship is that of brothers. And they didn't meet until much later. But we're going to hear, this is a very joyful section because Vrindavan Das Thakur is not only a Diksha disciple of Lord Nityananda, but he has deep love for both the Lords. And he's very clear, the relative perspective of Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya is the original personality of Godhead. He's very clear. And Nityananda is his expansion. He's very clear. But he doesn't see, there's a hierarchy per se. In other words, one who has respect for Lord Chaitanya but not respect for Lord Nityananda is an offender as far as he is concerned. And he has great respect for both. And so we're going to hear his very jubilant glorification of Lord Nityananda, like we did in chapter 1. chapter 1 is before his appearance, just introducing the whole book, Chaitanya Bhagavata. He glorifies Lord Nityananda. He glorifies Lord Nityananda without reservation, and in a very, very ecstatic, spontaneous, joyful way. So prepare yourself for hearing unprecedented glorification and jubilation with no attempt to explain where that's coming from. It's coming from his heart. He has great love for Lord Nityananda. All glories to Sri Krishna Chaitanya, who is an ocean of mercy. All glories to Sri Nityananda Prabhu, who is the friend of those who are ignorant of the goal of life. All glories to him who is the life, wealth, and soul of Sri Advaita Chandra. All glories to him who is the shelter of Srivas and Gadadhar. So there's the Panchatattva mantra. The Panchatattva mantra wasn't, my understanding is, it wasn't prevalent during their time, but in course of time, particularly by the time of Krishna Das Kaviraj, because it was almost a generation later that this was written. Lord Chaitanya in 5 features, that's the Panchatattva, became like a standard way of addressing Lord Chaitanya. All glories to Lord Vishvambar, the son of Sachi and Jagannath. All glories to the devotees who are the beloved associates of the Lord. On the order of Lord Chaitanya, Sri Anantadev. Sri Anantadev. Sri Anantadev. Sri Anantadev is, Ananta is an expansion of Balaram. And Sri Anantadev is here referring to Lord Nityananda. Sri Anantadev had already appeared in Radha Desh and was engaged in various pastimes. His father's name, Nityananda, his father's name was Hadai Ojha, and his mother's was Padmavati. Sri Nityananda Prabhu appeared in the village of Ekachakra as the Lord of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. From his childhood, Lord Nityananda was sober, intelligent, and the abode of all good qualities. His charming loveliness defeated that of millions of cupids. The entire district of Radha-desha, now Radha-desha refers to a certain side of the Ganges. If I'm not mistaken, it's the northern side. So there's the Ganges, and there's this side and that side. And Radha-desha, he's on that side. Radha-desha was filled with auspiciousness and devoid of famine and poverty from the time of his birth. So by his appearance, all worldly things became adjusted. And everything was flourishing. The day that Lord Gaurasundar appeared in Navadvip, in Radhadesh, Lord Nityananda roared loudly. His roar spread throughout innumerable universes, and people of the entire world were practically rendered unconscious. Some people said it was a thunderbolt, while others thought it was a great calamity. Others said, we know the cause. It was the loud roaring of Nityananda Gosai, the Lord of the Gaudiyas. In this way, people had different opinions about what had happened, but no one could recognize Lord Nityananda due to the influence of his illusory energy. Nityananda remained hidden as he enjoyed childhood pastimes with the other children. The pastimes that the Lord enjoyed with his childhood friends were all related to the activities of Lord Krishna. He's a little boy, just like we have some little boys over here. And he hadn't gone to school yet, but he knew A to Z, all kinds of details about Krishna's and Ramchandra's pastimes, and he enacted them with his friends. So it's very charming. he and his friends formed an assembly of demigods. And one of them, acting as Mother Earth, offered prayers to them. They then led Mother Earth to the riverbank, and the children all began to offer prayers. Then one of the boys, hidden from view, loudly declared, "I will soon take birth in Mathura, Gokula." One evening, the Lord and his friends enacted the marriage of Vasudeva and Devaki. Then, late one night, while everyone slept, they made a prison and enacted the birth of Lord Krishna. They created a Gokula, and Krishna was taken there in exchange with Mahamaya, thereby tricking King Kamsa. Another time, they dressed someone as Putana, and someone climbed on her chest to suck her breast. One day, Nityananda and his boyfriends made a shakata, or handcart, out of reeds, and then broke it. Another day, the Lord and his friends stole from the houses of the neighborhood cowherd men. The boys never left Lord Nityananda's association to go home, but continued sporting with him day and night. The children's parents did not complain. Rather, they would affectionately embrace Nityananda. They would say, "I have never seen such transcendental sports. How does this child know so many of Krishna's pastimes?" One day, the Lord made snakes out of leaves and then took his friends to the water. One of them jumped into the water and remained there inert. Later, the Lord brought him back to consciousness. Another day, the Lord and his friends went to Talavan, where they killed Dhenukasura and ate tal fruits. Nityananda and his childhood friends went into the fields and enjoyed various pastimes, such as killing of Bakasura, Agasura, and Vatsasura. In the afternoon, the Lord and associates returned home, blowing buffalo horns. One day, they enjoyed the pastime of lifting Govardhan Hill, and another day they created a Vrindavan wherein they enjoyed various sports. One day they enacted Krishna's pastime of stealing the gopis' clothes, and yet another day they enacted his meeting the wives of the Brahmanas. On one occasion, a boy dressed as Narada with a beard and gave Kamsa some confidential information. Another day, one boy dressed as a Krura and took Krishna and Balaram to Kamsa's capital. As Nityananda cried in the mood of the gopis, he appeared to his friends that a river was flowing from his eyes. Due to the influence of Vishnu's illusory energy, no one could recognize Nityananda, and he enjoyed pastimes with his friends. The children arranged a city of Mathura and then wandered throughout its streets. Sometimes they played the role of one played the role of a gardener, and someone accepted a flower garland from him. Someone dressed as Kubja and sandalwood pulp was accepted from her. A large bow was made. Then they all shouted in joy when it was broken. They enacted the pastimes of killing Kuvalaya, elephant, and the wrestlers Chanura and Mushtaka, after Kamsa was grabbed by the hair and thrown to the ground. After killing Kamsa, the Lord danced with his friends in such a way that everyone watching began to laugh. In this way, Nityananda and his friends imitated the pastimes of the various incarnations. One day, Nityananda dressed like Vamana and went to cheat Bali Maharaj out of his kingdom, which covered the three worlds. Someone played the role of the aged Shukracharya, who forbid Bali from giving the 3 steps. After accepting the gift, the Lord placed his last step on the head of Bali. One day, Nityananda enacted the pastime of building a bridge across the ocean. And the boys, with the boys playing the roles of monkeys, they cut castor oil plants and made a bridge across the water. Then all the boys exclaimed, Jaya Raghunath! Nityananda accepted the role of Lakshmana, who angrily went with a bow in his hand to chastise Sugriva. "O king of the monkeys, my lord is in distress. Come quickly or I'll kill you. How can you sit here enjoying with women while he is lamenting on Malyavan mountain?" Another day, Lord Nityananda spoke in anger to Parashuram. "O Brahmana, I am not at fault. Leave here at once." Lord Nityananda was absorbed in the mood of Lakshmana. The boys, however, could not understand this and thought it was just a game. On another occasion, 5 boys took the role of monkeys, and the Lord took the role of Lakshmana. "Who are you monkeys wandering in the forest? I am the servant of Ramachandra. Tell me who you are." They replied, "We are wandering out of fear of Vali. Please take us to Ramachandra. We wish to take the dust from his lotus feet." The Lord embraced them and led them to Ramachandra, whereupon they all fell at his feet. One day, the Lord enacted the pastime of killing Indrajit, the son of Ravana, and one day, in the mood of Lakshmana, he accepted defeat. Someone in the role of Vibhishana was brought before Ramachandra, and Rama performed his abhishek or coronation, installing him as king of Lanka. One boy said, "I am the mighty Ravana. Now I am releasing the Shakti Shela weapon. Stop it if you can, Lakshmana." Saying this, the boy threw a lotus flower at Nityananda, and in the mood of Lakshmana, he fell to the ground. After the Lord, in the mood of Lakshmana, fell unconscious, all the boys tried in vain to revive him. When they found no symptom of life remaining in the body of Nityananda, they all held their heads and began to cry. The Lord's father and mother came running there and also observed that there was no sign of life in their son. They then also fell to the ground unconscious. Everyone who saw this tragedy was struck with wonder. As the boys described the entire incident, someone said, "I understand why he is unconscious. Previously, one great actor played the role of Dasarath, and when he heard that Ram had left for the forest, he left his body." Someone else said, "There is a boy dressed as Hanuman. If he gives him medicine, he'll be cured." Before the incident, the Lord had instructed his friend, "When I fall unconscious, you should all gather around me and cry. After a while, send Hanuman for some medicine. I will recover when he puts the medicine to my nose." When the Lord fell unconscious in his own mood, the boys were all bewildered. Because they were so confused, they could not remember the Lord's instruction. They simply cried loudly, "Oh, brother, please get up." When the boys heard the people's comments, they remembered Nityananda's instruction, and the boy, dressed as Hanuman, immediately went for the medicine. Another boy, dressed as a renunciate, welcomed Hanuman with fruits and roots. He said to Hanuman, "My dear sir, please stay and grace my ashram. It's a great fortune to meet such a person as you." Hanuman replied, "I must go and immediately complete my important mission. I would like to come, but I cannot delay. You must have heard that Lakshman, the younger brother of Ramachandra, has been rendered unconscious by the Shakti Shela weapon of Ravana. Therefore I am going to Gandhamandana hill to bring medicine. Only then he will survive." The renunciate then said, "If you must go, first take bath and eat something, then you may go." The 2 boys repeated whatever Nityananda had instructed them. Therefore, everyone gazed at them in astonishment as they listened to their conversation. Then, on the request of the renunciate, Hanuman went to take bath in the lake, whereupon another boy in the lake grabbed hold of his foot. The boy, playing the role of the crocodile, then tried to pull Hanuman into the water, but Hanuman pulled the boy to the shore. After a short fight, Hanuman defeated the crocodile. When Hanuman returned to the renunciate's ashram, he saw a mighty warrior. A boy, dressed as a Rakshasa, then attempted to swallow Hanuman. He challenged, "You have defeated the crocodile, but how will you defeat me? I will eat you. Then who will revive Lakshmana?" Hanuman replied, "Your Ravana is a dog. I consider him most insignificant. Get out of my way." In this way, the two first exchanged some harsh words, then they began pulling each other's hair, and finally they began striking at each other with their fists. After promptly defeating the demon, Hanuman approached Gandhaman on a hill. There, Hanuman fought with some boys who were dressed as Gandharvas. After defeating the Gandharvas, Hanuman took Gandhamandana hill on his head to Lanka. Another boy, playing the role of a doctor, remembered Lord Ram as he held the medicine to Lakshmana's nose. At that very moment, Lord Nityananda regained his consciousness, upon which his parents and others all smiled in relief. Adai Pandit embraced his son, and all the boys became overjoyed. Everyone asked, "Dear son, where have you learned all this?" The Lord smiled and said, "These are my pastimes." In his early childhood, the Lord was most attractive. No one wanted to let him go from their laps. Everyone had more affection for Nityananda than they had for their own sons. You heard this one before, right? Krishna and the wives, the mothers of his cowherd boyfriends. So they had that same feeling towards Nityananda. But no one could recognize him due to influence of Lord Vishnu's illusory energy. In this way, from the beginning of his childhood, Nityananda had no happiness other than enjoying the happiness of Lord Krishna. All his friends left their parents to constantly sport in the company of Nityananda. I offer repeated obeisances at the feet of those boys who enjoyed the association of Lord Nityananda. This is similar to the statement made by Shukadeva Goswami. And Shukadeva Goswami is narrating the pastime between Krishna and his cowherd boyfriends. After, describing what they did together, he just offers his obeisances to the cowherd boys, and so forth. Thus, from his childhood, Nityananda had no interest other than enacting the various pastimes of Lord Krishna. Who can describe the pastimes of Lord Ananta? They are only manifest to one who has received his mercy. The words Dvi Prabhu refer to Sri Nityananda Prabhu and Sripad Madhavendra Puri. Lord Nityananda remained at home like this for 12 years. Thereafter he left for visiting the holy places, as did Balaram visit the holy places, but the circumstance was different, and age and everything was different. But it's a bhav, it's a pastime of the Lord. He traveled to the holy places for the next 20 years, and then finally joined the association of Lord Chaitanya. So that means he was 32. And Lord Chaitanya was in his 20s, early 20s. Please listen to this narration of Adikanda of the holy places visited by Lord Nityananda, who only the most degraded sinful atheist would dare criticize. That Lord who delivered the entire universe is nothing but an ocean of mercy. Only by his mercy can we know the truth about Lord Chaitanya. In fact, the glories of Lord Chaitanya are manifested through him. Please listen to topics concerning Lord Chaitanya's dearest associate visiting the various pilgrimage sites. The Lord first went to Vakreshwara. Then he went alone to Vaidyanath. No, when he left with a sannyasi. Though the first place was Vakreshwara, then he went alone to Vaidyanath. Because sometimes, was he, all these places did he visit? Did he visit with the sannyasi or sometimes alone? But not specific, but at least some together, some alone. He went to Gaya. And then to Lord Shiva's abode Kashi, where the Ganges flows towards the north. Seeing the Ganges, Lord Nityananda was greatly pleased. He took bath and drank some water, yet his grief was not mitigated. In the month of Magh, January, February, the Lord took an early morning bath at Prayag. Then he went to Mathura, his former birthplace. The Lord sported in the waters of the Yamuna at Vishramghat, and thereafter went with great interest to see Govardhan. The Lord visited each of the 12 forests, beginning with Vrindavan. When he saw the house and courtyard of Nanda Maharaj in Gokula, he sat down and cried profusely. Nityananda offered his obeisances to Madan Gopal and then went to Hastinapur, the abode of the Pandavas. Seeing the home of those devotees, Nityananda began to cry. The local people, however, could not understand the Lord's sentiments due to their lack of devotion. As Nityananda remembered Balaram's glorious activities in Hastinapur, he claimed, "Oh, Haladar, please save me," and then offered obeisances. Thereafter, Nityananda went to Dwaraka, where he joyfully took bath in the ocean. He next went to Siddhapura, the place of Lord Kapila. Then he went to Matsya Tirtha, where he distributed foodstuffs at a festival. Lord Nityananda then visited Shivakanchi. He's really getting around. And the adjoining Vishnu Kanchi. He laughed when he saw the two groups of followers quarreling there. Nityananda Prabhu also visited Kurukshetra, Prithu Dhaka, Bindu Sarovar, Prabhas, and Sudarshana Tirtha. He also visited the great holy place called Trita Kupa. He also visited Vashala, Brahmatirtha, and Chakratirtha. The Lord visited Prati Srota, where the Saraswati flows in the opposite direction. The most magnanimous Nityananda then went to Naimisharanya. He then visited the city of Ayodhya, where he cried upon seeing the birthplace of Lord Ram. Nityananda then visited the Chandala Guhaka's kingdom, where he fell unconscious. Simply by remembering the activities of the Chandala Guhaka, Nityananda lost consciousness in ecstasy for 3 days. On seeing the forest where Lord Ramachandra had resided, Nityananda rolled on the ground in separation. Thereafter, the Lord took bath in the Sarayu and Kaushiki rivers. Then he went to the ashram of Pulasya Rishi. Lord Nityananda took bath in the Gomati, Gandaki, and Shona rivers. Then he climbed to the top of Mahendra mountain. He's really all over the place. There, he offered obeisances to Parashuram. Nityananda also visited Haridwar, the source of the Ganges. This can't be chronological. The Lord took bath in Pampa, Brahmarati, Godavari, Vainva, and Vipasha rivers. After seeing Kartikeya at Madurai, the most intelligent Nityananda went to Sri Shaila, the abode of Shiva and Parvati. Shiva and Parvati resided on this mountain in their form of a Brahmana couple. Upon Nityananda's arrival there, they understood that their worshipable Lord was wandering on pilgrimage as a mendicant. They were most satisfied to receive such a guest, and Parvati happily cooked for the Lord. They fed the Lord with great affection, and Nityananda smiled and offered them his respects. Only Krishna knows what they confidentially discussed. Then the Lord continued his journey to Dravida, or South India. The Lord visited Venkatanatha, Kamakoshti, Puri, Kanchi, and Kaveri, the best of rivers. Then the Lord visited the sacred place of Sri Ranganath, and thereafter he went to Hari Kshetra. He visited the Rishabh mountain, Madurai, and the Kritamala, Tamrapani, and Uttara Yamuna rivers. Nityananda Prabhu visited the ashram of Agastya Rishi in the Malaya hills. The residents there were all jubilant to see the Lord. Nityananda stayed as a guest in their ashram and then departed in great ecstasy for Badrik Ashram. Lord Nityananda resided in seclusion for some days in the ashram of Narayana Rishis. He then went to the ashram of Srila Vyasadeva, who recognized that Nityananda was Balaram himself. Srila Vyasadeva personally received Nityananda as a guest, and the Lord offered his obeisances to Srila Vyasadeva. Lord Nityananda then visited the residence of the Buddhists. When he arrived there, he saw they were all sitting together. The Lord asked a question, but no one replied. Becoming angry at them, the Lord kicked them in the head. But they simply smiled and ran away. Nityananda then fearlessly continued his travels throughout the forest. Okay, now he's going. The Lord eventually arrived at Kanyakumari. After seeing Durga there, he went to see the southern ocean. Nityananda then went to Anantapura, and after that he went to Panchapsara Kund. He next visited the temple of Shiva known as Gokarna. He visited Kerala and the various places in Trigarta. He then visited the goddess Parvati, who dwells in the island near Gokarna. Lord Nityananda also visited Nivindhya, Payoshni, and Tapti rivers. He went to the city of Mahishmati on the banks of the Reva River, and he saw Malatirtha. The Lord then passed through the holy district of Shurparaka on his way west. But if you're making a line drawing of the places, you get dizzy. The fearless, ecstatic Nityananda Prabhu traveled in this way without fear of anyone. The Lord had no control of his body due to his ecstatic love for Krishna. Sometimes he cried, sometimes he laughed. Who can understand his ecstatic moods? As the Lord traveled in this way, by the will of providence, he met Sri Madhavendra Puri. The body of Sri Madhavendra Puri is imbued with ecstatic love of God, and his followers partake of the same sentiments. He did not relish anything other than loving sentiments for Lord Krishna, who enjoyed pastimes in the body of Madhavendra Puri. What more can I say about the devotion of he who is the spiritual master of Sri Advaita Acharya? When Nityananda saw Madhavendra Puri, he was immediately stunned in ecstatic love and fell to the ground unconscious. Seeing Nityananda, Madhavendra Puri forgot himself, and he also fell unconscious. Sri Gaurachandra has repeatedly stated that Sri Madhavendra Puri is the original root of worship in ecstatic love. After they both fell unconscious, the disciples, headed by Ishwar Puri, then all began to cry. After some time, when they regained external consciousness, they held each other's neck and began to cry. Overwhelmed in ecstatic love for Krishna, they then rolled on the sand and cried loudly. The words Dvi Prabhu referred to Sri Nityananda Prabhu and Sri Pad Madhavendra Puri. Tears of love flowed like rivers from their eyes and soaked Mother Earth, thereby making her feel gratified. Shivering, shedding tears, hair standing on end, and other ecstatic symptoms appeared without end, for Lord Chaitanya personally resides in their bodies. Lord Nityananda said, whatever pilgrimage I performed till now has borne fruit. Today I have seen the lotus feet of Madhavendra Puri. By seeing his ecstatic love of God, my life has become successful. Madhavendra Puri embraced Nityananda and was unable to reply, for his throat was choked with love. Sri Madhavendra Puri was so pleased that he was unable to release Nityananda from his embrace. Ishwara Puri, Brahmananda Puri, and the other disciples of Madhavendra Puri all felt great attachment for Lord Nityananda. They had previously come across many sadhus, but they had never before seen such devotional symptoms. They always felt distressed while conversing with materialistic people, so they decided to travel throughout the forests. Now, with this meeting, their distress was mitigated and their love for Krishna was aroused. For days, Nityananda Prabhu traveled with Madhavendra Puri and relished discussing topics of Lord Krishna. The characteristics of Madhavendra Puri are most wonderful. He fell unconscious just seeing a dark cloud. Out of love for Krishna, he would day and night laugh, cry, and exclaim, "Hi, hi!" almost like a drunkard. Lord Nityananda was intoxicated with loving sentiments for Govinda. He would laugh loudly and sway to and fro with love of God. Madhavendra Puri's disciples constantly chanted the names of Hari as they observed their extraordinary symptoms of love. The two forgot whether it was day or night in the absorption of ecstatic love. Although they remained together for a number of days, they considered that time hardly a moment. They considered that time hardly a moment. Who can know all the incidents that took place between Nityananda and Madhavendra Puri? Only Krishna can know. Madhavendra Puri was unable to give up the association of Nityananda, so he constantly remained with him. Madhavendra said, "I have never seen such ecstatic love. Wherever such love of God is found, that is my favorite holy place. I know Krishna has bestowed his mercy on me because he has given me the association of Nityananda. Wherever Nityananda's association is found, that place is most sacred and completely transcendental. If one hears the name of Nityananda, he will certainly attain the lotus feet of Lord Krishna Chandra. If one has the slightest envy for Nityananda, he is never favored by Krishna, even if he appears to be a devotee." He's pretty ecstatic. He liked Lord Nityananda a whole lot. In this way, Madhavendra Puri day and night exhibited affection for Nityananda with his speech and activities. Nityananda considered Madhavendra to be his guru and nothing less. The two greatly learned persons did not know whether it was day or night due to their ecstatic love for Krishna. After remaining together for some days, Nityananda left for Setubandha, Rameshwaram. Now, there's another biography written by the same author, biography about Lord Nityananda, and towards the end of that biography, he writes, Vrindavan Das writes, that just prior to this meeting with Madhavendra Puri, Nityananda received mantra from the spiritual master of both of them. Krishna, Krishna. Just went away. Ishwara Puri, Madhavendra Puri. It'll come back. Somehow my mind went blank. And so shortly after that initiation, he spent this time with Madhavendra Puri, then went further south. Madhavendra Puri went to see the Saraswati river, and they're absorbed in their in Krishna consciousness. They both forgot their own bodies. Therefore, devotees' feelings of separation for the Lord maintain his life. Otherwise, how could such intense feelings be tolerated if one were in external consciousness? Whoever hears these topics regarding the meeting between Lord Nityananda and Madhavendra Puri will certainly achieve the wealth of love for Krishna. After traveling in ecstatic mood for some days, Nityananda arrived at Setubandha. After taking a bath at Danustirtha, he went to see Lord Rameshwara. Then the Lord went to Vijayanagara. He visited Mayapuri, Avanti, and the Godavari rivers. And then he went to the abode of Jayada Nrsimha. He visited Tirumala and Kurmakshetra and eventually went to see Jagannath, the Lord of Nilachala. As he approached Sri Nilachala, he fell unconscious upon seeing the temple flag. He saw Lord Jagannath as the source of the Chatur Vyuha. Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, surrounded by his dear devotees. Immediately upon seeing the Lord, Nityananda's hairs stood on end and he fell unconscious. When he regained consciousness, he again fell to the ground, shivering, perspiring, crying, falling to the ground in loud roaring. Who can describe these ecstatic transformations that were exhibited by Lord Nityananda? After remaining in Nilachala for some time, Nityananda went in jubilation to Gangasagara. Who can describe the Lord's pilgrimage? I have written in brief only by his mercy. After visiting various holy places in this way, Lord Nityananda returned again to Mathura. He continuously stayed in Vrindavan and became so absorbed in Krishna that he did not know whether it was day or night. He did not eat, but he occasionally drank some milk whenever someone offered it to him. Lord Nityananda knew well that Lord Gaurachandra was living incognito in Navadvip. So the parallel is, Lord Chaitanya, this is now nearing his 32nd year, Lord Chaitanya had appeared in Navadvip some years before, something like, 12 or 15 years or whatever it was. Nityananda thought to himself, I will go serve Lord Gauranga when he manifests his opulences. Thinking in this way, Lord Nityananda did not go to Navadvip, but remained at Mathura. He regularly enjoyed sporting in the waters of the Yamuna and playing with the children in Vrindavan. Brahma, Ananta, Shiva, and the other demigods create, maintain, and destroy under the order of Lord Chaitanya. Although Lord Nityananda is omnipotent, he did not distribute devotional service to the Lord at that time. When Lord Gaurachandra manifests his opulences, then on his order, he would begin to distribute devotional service. The servants and associates of Lord Chaitanya did not like to do anything without his instruction, but this does not diminish their glories in the least. Brahma, Ananta, Shiva, and the other demigods create, maintain, and destroy under the order of Lord Chaitanya. It's the exact same verse, a few verses later. Sinful persons who do not like to hear such things are not fit to be seen by the Vaishnavas. Just see for yourself how Nityananda Prabhu has blessed the people of this universe with the treasure of devotional service. Lord Nityananda is the foremost devotee of Lord Chaitanya, for the glories of Lord Chaitanya always reside on his tongue, day and night. Lord Nityananda chants the glories of Lord Chaitanya. So when one worships Nityananda, he certainly attains devotion for Lord Chaitanya. All glories to Lord Nityananda, who is the very first manifestation of Lord Chaitanya. The glories of Lord Chaitanya become manifest by his mercy. One day, one becomes attached to Nityananda by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya. And one who knows Nityananda never faces any adversities. Those who wish to cross the ocean of material existence and drown in the ocean of devotional service must worship Lord Nityananda. Someone said, Nityananda is just like Balaram. Another person said, he is most dear to Sri Chaitanya. Someone may consider Nityananda a sannyasi, Someone may consider him a devotee, and someone may consider him a Gyani. They may say whatever they like. Even if Nityananda was a most insignificant servant of Lord Chaitanya, still I would keep his lotus feet in my heart. Therefore I kick on the head. This statement by Vrindavan Das is like a topic of discussion amongst the Vaishnavas. Some don't like it. I kick on the head of any sinful person who disregards the glories of Lord Nityananda and dares to criticize him. It's his ecstasy. If you find any follower of Lord Chaitanya appear to say something bad about Lord Nityananda, you should know for certain that what they said was actually glorification. Vaishnavas are always pure and full of knowledge, so if there is ever any quarrel between them, you should know it is simply part of their pastimes. If a person takes the side of one Vaishnava and criticizes another, he is certainly vanquished. Anyone who follows Nityananda without finding fault in him will surely attain the shelter of Sri Gaurachandra. When will that day come, when I will see Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda surrounded by their devotees? Almost done. Let me serve Lord Gaurachandra under the instructions of Lord Nityananda, who is my worshipable Lord in all respects. I desire to study Srimad Bhagavatam under Sri Nityananda Sarup, birth after birth. All glories to the Supreme Lord, Sri Gauranga, you have given me and then taken from me the association of Lord Nityananda. Still I beg for your mercy, so that my mind may remain absorbed in his and your lotus feet. Lord Nityananda is your greatest devotee. No one can attain him without your sanction. Lord Nityananda traveled throughout the forests of Vrindavan until Lord Gaurachandra displayed his opulences. Whoever hears these descriptions of Nityananda Sarup's visit to the holy places will attain the treasure of divine love. Accepting Sri Chaitanya and Nityananda Prabhu as my life and soul, I, Vrindavan Das, sing the glories of their lotus feet. That was 238 verses and a whole lot of pages. So that's why I was reading fast. And we mentioned this before. The text is written in such a way that it was to be sung. That is to say, the readers were not necessarily literate, but they're Bengalis, and Bengalis like to sing. So they would learn the whole thing just by singing and singing and singing and singing and singing. One can only imagine the joy of simple village people hearing with love the glories of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. And the sentiment of loving service is very prominent in the hearts of Vaishnavas. Now, how deeply they understood or not the identities of these two lords, Krishna and Balaram, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda, at least in principle, we can assume they had that understanding. And so when Lord Nityananda did the kind of his mood was ecstasy, but in that mood of ecstasy, one of his characteristics is he just did not at all observe social convention. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the latter stages of his life, he would check his ecstasy, especially when he was in the company of others. Like there's a description when Lord Chaitanya was crossing a river to visit the home of Vallabhacharya, and he got a boat, and he was he felt this is the river Jamuna, and he was in Vrindavan, and He was in ecstasy and was stood up and was dancing and dancing, and the boat, they were afraid the boat was going to tip over. And when Vallabhacharya saw this ecstasy of Lord Chaitanya, he had never seen anything like that, and he was just astonished. And when Lord Chaitanya then recognized what he had done, he sat down and was very calm. But in the latter stages of his life, he kept himself in seclusion, in part because the ecstatic symptoms were just uncontrollable. Anyway, Lord Nityananda made no attempt to control his ecstasies. He would sometimes go extremely this way and sometimes extremely that way. And his associates, his intimate associates, were ecstatic like him. They were not restricted by social convention. Most people are. And in the case of spontaneous love, what's said is those who are following the path of ecstatic love, they do observe social convention unless it's in conflict with their ecstasy. And then there may be some transgression of conventional etiquette or duties that are normally to be done by somebody, a Vaishnava, but they're not to be faulted. So Vrindavandas is such a devotee. He's describing Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya without any social convention or no restriction, nation. This is who he is. And he was moved this way, moved that way. He was in that mood himself, and he was describing Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya's mood in the same way. He's on another platform. It's not so, we've said this in different ways, it's not so highly philosophical. It's just juice. No, it's not that he didn't understand the foundations of philosophy. He was born in a Brahmana family and he was trained in all those skills. But he was just on another plane or another expression of devotion. And so that's how Chaitanya Bhagavata is written. One of the reasons that Srila Prabhupada chose to translate Chaitanya Charitamrita, well, two of the reasons. It's very philosophical, and it deals, for example, with confronting the Prakashananda Saraswati and the Mayavadis. Confronting Bhakti Prakashananda Saraswati and the Mayavadis. So there was a very lengthy section in Adi Leela chapter 7 when Prabhupada translated that. And just it's a detail, but when Prabhupada got to that translation, we didn't even have the rest of Chaitanya Charitamrita, but he wanted that just that chapter would be published as a separate book. It was published as a separate hardcover book, this thick, for the devotees, then as a paperback book, that thick. And Prabhupada wanted us, he wanted us to understand what Mayavad doctrine was and how to defeat it, when we didn't even know what a Mayavadi was. Like, what's that? He was preparing us, because he knew in time we would confront persons with that disposition. And sure enough, it happened. And we were prepared. But it was, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine. It was one of Srila Prabhupada's primary focuses. Not, delivering the world, the Western countries, but delivering the world that's filled with impersonalism and voidism. So there are things like that in Chaitanya Charitamrita that were not in Chaitanya Bhagavata, because the author was of a different mood. He mentioned here and there, but not like, vigorously drilling down on the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya compared to the philosophy of Shankaracharya. So, and then there's details of the later pastimes that Vrindavan Das didn't have the same access to, but Krishnadas Kaviraj did. Krishnadas Kaviraj did because he heard it directly from Raghunath Das Goswami, who was living with Lord Chaitanya in Puri. He heard in detail. He not only heard in detail from Nityananda, but he received the confidential understanding of all the pastimes and everything from Swarup Damodar. Swarup Damodar, that there's going to be a discussion sometime next week where the GBC strategic planning team, mainly it's Gopal Bhatta and a team of others, who are taking this time to, prior to Gaur Purnima, to provide an opportunity for the devotees provide an opportunity for the devotees in the world to hear from, a whole range of eloquent speakers on all kinds of very, very carefully thought out topics. Just recently presented, I want to hear the record. Well, I'm going off in a different direction right now, but Madhavananda, disciple of Gaur Govinda Maharaj that lives in Jagannath Puri, gave a whole explanation of, the background, the big picture of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes and specifically spending time in Puri, because nearly half of his life was in Puri. Or another devotee just gave a lengthy description of Shikshashtaka. Or another devotee, the role of the holy name in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and so forth and so on. So I'm going to be speaking something about the associates of Lord Chaitanya and how they enhanced Lord Chaitanya's teachings and pastimes. And Swarup Damodar is one of them. Swarup Damodar was the phrase that's used by our acharyas. Something like, forget the phrase that they use. They use a very nice phrase, very descriptive phrase, that he was the embodiment of Lord Chaitanya's ecstasies. He understood everything that Lord Chaitanya was saying, feeling, and experiencing. So when Lord Chaitanya exhibited this or that or the other ecstasy, he understood exactly what the ecstasy was. He knew how to complement it with song or verse, etc. And Swarup Damodar explained all kinds of truths about Lord Chaitanya to Raghunath Das. Raghunath Das then, after Lord Chaitanya left, went to Vrindavan, and Raghunath Das explained all of those things to Krishnadas Kaviraj, who wrote them down. So he had very, inside information. He knew the heart of Lord Chaitanya. That's, really special. And he was very, very learned. And so what he wrote was very elevated. The heart of Lord Chaitanya revealed in the words of one who understood them. The heart of Lord Chaitanya. And Swarup Damodar had a big, big role to play. So Vrindavan Das didn't have that same set of resources. He was just an ecstatic Vaishnava, pure devotee, and a spontaneous love of God, writing what he wrote. It's very wonderful. The style is different, but pure devotee through and through, and respected and authoritative. All the details of what's described here, it's taken to how do you know about somebody's past? From authority, you know someone's past. And he knew from those that had direct association of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. He knew, and he put it down. So now we have this record, this authoritative record of Lord Chaitanya's and Lord Nityananda's life, particularly before Lord Chaitanya left Navadvip to go to Puri. He knew some things about his pastimes in Puri, but the most authoritative is these first two khandas. And that's what we're going to be discussing during this, or reading from, during this visit. Let's see if there's some discussion. Gosh, it's 7:35. Any thoughts or comments? Yeah?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. I was thinking when Lord Nityananda was traveling around all the world to take darshan and take bath in the holy rivers, does it indicate anything that that we have to? Because I heard that in this age we cannot do all those things practically, so chanting of the holy name is the only way for us. How to understand?
Specifically, in terms of application for us, how do we understand? That's your question? That's your question?
Yeah. Taking darshan of the holy places and the whole.
Well, here's how we should understand. It's not exactly apply. Lord Balaram and Nityananda Ram visited these holy places to purify the holy places. It's described when sadhus go to such holy places, the accumulated sins are nullified by their presence, because people go and deposit sins and it becomes a pile of sins. Anyway, that kind of description is there, although the place is pure because it's a holy place. When Lord Balaram visited those places, that was the reason. Same when Krishna went wherever he went, was for purifying those places. So Nityananda did the same because they're the same Lord in different periods of time and pastimes. So our hearing of those places and those visits and so forth, there's not details. And in the Chaitanya Bhagavata, in some cases, there's some detail, more about where the place is and the significance of the place. But it's purifying just to hear them. For us, the application point is, this is our Lord, he wants to purify. Even the holy places he wants to purify, what to speak of us. And so, hearing them is our method of purification. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, that's our method. So some people like, I know some people really like, they go to pilgrimage places, whenever possible. And it's purifying, but it's purifying just to hear as well. The application point, our main purifying places are where the Lord directly performs his pastimes. But to go to these other places is also very nice, so we sometimes do. And when we do our main activity, besides taking bath in these places, is hearing the pastimes of the Lord in these places. Hearing the significance of the place in the place. It has a special potency. But everything is within the holy name. That's our shelter, finally. Something else? You have something else? Okay.
I was just thinking, please kindly correct me, Guru Maharaj, if at all my thought process is not proper. Like how Lord Nityananda, I can't really understand the mood of ecstasy while when he was in Vrindavan also, when he went to Nanda Maharaj's house, he was crying. It's really heart touching. Being the Lord himself, how he can feel that. I was just relating it to somehow the soft-heartedness of Arjuna, then how he was feeling, that love and affection towards his relatives when he has to do his duty. That how kind the Lord is and how soft his heart is. That's how I'm feeling, and I don't know how to. I don't know, somehow I was just feeling like that, whether it is right or not.
What you're saying is confirmed. I'm as you were saying it, I was thinking of a statement by Rupa Goswami from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu describing prema. And there's three main elements in prema. And one of them is the soft-heartedness. It's the first one of the three that he mentions. Another is intense feelings of intimacy, or mamata. Intense feelings of intimacy. And a third is desire to serve. Of course, very strong. But that Lord Nityananda is in that mood towards Lord Chaitanya as well. He wants to serve. So, as you were speaking, I was thinking of this. Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya, as Krishna and Balaram, they're omniscient. It's not, say it negatively, it's not that they don't know everything at any moment or every moment. It's not like they learn things like we learn things. At the same time, the Lord desires, not out of incompleteness, but out of experiencing love. He experiences love which awakens that feeling of love from time to time in different ways. Sometimes and sometimes. So the pastimes of the Lord are like that. When he went to the place of Nanda, he was, not that he didn't know who he was or what took place there in his pastimes as Balaram. Pretty challenging having three little kids not getting restless. Are you restless? Okay. I forgot what I was saying. We have something online? Nothing online. Anything? Yes?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. I think hearing the Lord Nityananda Prabhu's role playing on it, I think we were reading the Leelamrita, where Srila Prabhupada in his college days, he was playing the role of, I think, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes on it, where he was playing the role of Advaita Acharya on it. So I think in that they described it, how he was remembering all his verses on it, and then so that was comment on it. It was not question, Maharaj. And
I'm not sure what you're saying. In Leelamrita, there's some recollection, reading of Prabhupada speaking about Lord Advaita Acharya's exchanges with these two lords. Yes?
yes.
And so you're just remembering that and appreciating.
Yeah. In college days, he was playing that role. I think he was playing it.
Okay. Yeah. Vaishnavas enjoy hearing and discussing and remembering, just like what Chaitanya was enjoying, and the cowherd and his friends. They were Brahmana boys. They weren't Vaishya cowherd boys, but they were enjoying his company, but being the company of the Lord who cannot but enjoy. Okay, I think we're done. You have something? There's one question. One question.
This is from Amara Mataji. Hare Krishna Maharaj. I'm curious to know, what does it mean that these great devotees do understand Lord's heart, and how do they get this kind of mercy?
How do they get what?
This kind of This kind of mercy.
How do they? By causeless mercy. That's how they get mercy. The Lord chooses and they get mercy. So what we serve, and we're ready for whatever mercy He wants to give us. It can look like this or that. That's the application. And it can come however He likes. And that's our life. And we love it. Being at the beck and call of whatever He likes. That's our life. That's spiritual life. You have something.
I was just looking up when you asked who is the spiritual master of Madhavendra Puri. Laksmipriya.
Lakshmi Tirtha, thank you. Lakshmi Tirtha, yes.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
another thing, I was trying to see in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Avajananti mam moda manushim anamasritam. Like when He comes in the human form, fools cannot deride Him. And but when Krishna performed, what Krishna performed is not ordinary. It's not human-like thing. Killing demons, lifting over the hill, and so many other things. It's not human-like at all. But here in Chaitanya Leela, Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda Prabhu, what they did, it seems like a human, but actually when it comes to exhibiting the ecstasy, it's not human. Is that right understanding? How do we compare this? Like it is also like they are also in the human form, but they are the Lord's. Does the same principle apply here too?
Yes. The mission and their exchanges are different, but they're fully transcendental, and that's how we should regard. And sometimes seemingly ordinary, sometimes most extraordinary. And, in Krishna's pastimes and in the Gaunatai's pastimes, sometimes seemingly ordinary, quite extraordinary in different ways.